then the lady finally came back with another girl, and this girl was being trained to be a manager, so the lady was using me to teach her how to interview people. So they sat across from me and they were just talking to each other, and they were saying stuff like, so you can't ask him if he's 18, you have to ask him if he's over 18. Are you over 18? No. Okay, so you're going to check the not higher box right there.
The Odd Ones Out is a growing YouTube channel created by James R. He has been creating comics for several years in YouTube videos for the last 3. Despite this relatively short amount of time on the platform, The Odd Ones Out has acquired 5 million subscribers. The channel consists of mostly animated videos where James speaks of and animates experiences he's had. One of the greatest appeals of his work is its hilarious content, told in a way that replicates many renowned comedians. There are several methods that comedians use to draw laughs from a crowd, including one called anecdotal. This is when someone tells a funny experience they've had, oftentimes embellishing it. The Odd Ones Out primarily utilizes this in his videos. The first step to succeeding in this method is by writing stories that engage the audience, but don't necessarily have to be funny. Take this for example.
But the preparatory school I went to was relatively worse than a normal public school. The school I went to didn't even have desks. They had fold-up tables, and the chairs were fold-up too. How did they... Oh. Well, now I know where all the budget went. The main difference between a public school and a prep school is that a prep school is smaller and there's a uniform and there's lockers. So, why did my...
It doesn't have a clear joke in it, yet the audience is engaged in what he is saying. He speaks on something you are at least vaguely familiar with and expands on your knowledge of it without going so much in detail that it bores you. Still, more often than not, he intersperses jokes into his monologue. Additionally, he has mastered the amount of time that a viewer is ready to wait for a laugh. Listen to what Jerry Seinfeld says on when people should laugh.
Then I had to figure out how to end the thing, and that's the hardest part. If you have a long bit, the biggest laugh has to be at the end.
But watch how The Odd Ones Out oftentimes ends one story before going into the next.
Counting out 8 olives? Nobody does that. I usually worked the closing shift.
He completely forgoes the transition and just cuts. He hardly ever builds up to one payoff, but instead has several frequent small laughs. In fact, the average time between any 2 clear jokes is 23 seconds. This works well for his audience as the majority of them are 18 to 24-year-olds, a generation of people that are becoming more accustomed to having frequent payoffs in their comedy viewing experience. Being in this age group himself, James is able to further his success for this audience by talking about relatable experiences. In illustration,
and if the dog leans up against you or sits on your leg, then you're obligated by dog law not to move because you might disturb the dog, and you love them too much to do that.
Many people understand this and therefore relate to this feeling, resulting in laughs. The other half of this coin is relevant and relatable events and trends, such as any of the following.
I think, oh, he's getting a foot long. He probably wants onions on half of it, but not the other. Yeah, apparently. I don't know what cardboard boat racing is supposed to teach you. Maybe teamwork skills and shipbuilding.
These jokes or references will draw laughs from those that are in or close to his audience's majority age group, suggesting that he shapes his jokes and stories around who watches his videos. The Odd Ones Out is successful in his endeavor to create anecdotal comedy because he writes engaging, relatable, and relevant stories that are well-paced. By far, the majority of James's jokes utilize the method called derailing expectations. In general, humor involves exaggeration and/or surprise, and James knows it.
What do you want?
I know what it is, and you didn't tell me about it. What, you think I wasn't going to find out?
This is why I'm never getting pregnant. Okay, we did watch a lot of Netflix and do homework, so I mean, it was... Well, frickin', why am I perfectly nitpicking this piece when the poet purposely put poor punctuation in his poems? Pterodactyl! That would have been a better YouTube video, but that also would have been lying. And then afterwards, the president came down and high-fived all of us. Science fair.
The same method is reflected in his comics. Through several years of making comics, it is obvious that he's learned what's funny and what's not. And as he says,
Why?
It's random. Random is funny.
something that James has at his disposal that most comedians don't is the use of two different mediums, visual and auditory. The best way to see the impact of them combined is to take away one. For example, watch this clip without and then with the visuals.
On the off chance the owners did show up, they would just pick up some food and then they would make sure I was making sandwiches the right way. And every time I made a sandwich in front of them, they would always find something wrong with it, without fail. You put on too many olives. Do you know, according to the at that store? So I didn't really have a boss most of the time. On the off chance the owners did show up, they would just pick up some food and then they would make sure I was making sandwiches the right way. And every time I made a sandwich in front of them, they would always find something wrong with it, without fail. You put on too many olives. Do you know, according to the
The visual builds upon the story, and the same goes for the opposite way. James recognizes this himself when he says,
That's the thing. People ask me how I get ideas for these videos, and a lot of times the ideas aren't interesting. It's just the way that you write it is interesting.
Through the marrying of visual and audio, the result becomes something greater than either on their own. In his video about getting recognized, James said,
I'm just someone sitting in a closet making cartoons. I'm still a person. I don't know. Again, I'm relatively new to all this. I guess I'm obviously doing something right, not to toot my own horn.
I just touched on a few of the things he does to create quality and hilarious content. There are many factors that contribute to his success. Can you think of more? Do you think I'm correct? Write your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember,
Wear your seatbelt.